Tumeken's Light is the new tier 95 halberd weapon, and it is meant to replace the noxious scythe that came into game quite a long time ago. And today I'm going to give you my thoughts on this weapon. Now, from what I understand and what people have told me so far is most people have looked at this weapon from a Slayer perspective. And while I imagine this weapon is strong at Slayer, that is not something I do, as I've had 200 mil Slayer since as long as I can remember. And I wanted to see if there were any PvM uses for this, and I found a few that seem pretty interesting. And there's one that actually has quite a lot of potential. But first, we have to understand what even this weapon is. So as you can see, it is a tier 95 halberd ranged weapon, and I do have the shard on it just to unlock its full potential. The perks on it are best in slot for AoE farming as far as I can remember, and the thing that makes this so special other than the stats themselves is it has a passive effect, it has a special attack, and that special attack has its own passive effect. And essentially what happens is when you kill an enemy in game, it'll send out a beam of light to up to 4 other enemies within 6 tiles of the target and do a bit of damage. So if you're AoE farming or clearing out a bunch of mobs or something, this can snowball up quite quickly. And I found this mostly useful for dealing with a bunch of medium to low HP mobs, and this will help clear out some of the ones that are surviving on anywhere from like 2 to 500 HP. Now the special attack, if I hover over this Sunfall Slam, it says it is a large hit within 1 tile of you, but this is actually a 5x5, not a 3x3. So you don't have to be within like Lang spec ranged in order to get hits with this spec. It'll work in a 5x5. I'm not sure if that's just a typo in the special attack or if that's just a misunderstanding. And this special attack, when you use it, you have a 15-second window where its own passive will put out 2 additional hits if there are 2 additional enemies within 4 tiles. It says here of the target, but it is within the player. And essentially per ability press, you get a free 2 hits, and it adds in with the normal passive effect on killing blow, essentially just sending out a bunch of small hits. Now, the interesting thing about all of these hits is every single one of them can crit. These are not just fixed values that can't crit, which if you're using it in conjunction with something like Meteor Strike or Tsunami or Incendiary Shot, anything that gives you a crit adren buff, you can actually crank out quite a bit of spare adrenaline, which will help you do a lot more AoE damage because you'll be able to use things like the Dragon Halberd in, say, an EOF or a Dragon Two-Hander a bit more often, because those special attacks do cost quite a bit of adrenaline. But if you're constantly getting crit refunds from all of the passive hits kind of flying around, it will definitely help make things more consistent in that regard. So naturally, the first place that I loaded up a preset with this weapon and went to was ED1. And straight up in ED1, this thing absolutely cleans house. It is probably the best case example I can think of in order to show its potential for AoE damage. The hits from the killing blow going out and targeting other things that haven't quite died yet was very nice. The additional hits coming out from the special attack passive were also very nice. And overall, if you do need to run ED1 in order to farm out the pet, this is definitely a good weapon to do that with. However, it's hard for me to recommend someone buying this weapon to go farm ED1 because the ancient scales are only selling for around 500k now. It is no longer the GP giant that it once was. But for any of the elite dungeons, this weapon absolutely will clean house, no questions asked. And so naturally, the next dungeon I went to was ED3. I thought about going to ED2, but melee ED2 has always been kind of in a weird state, and I didn't think having larger HP pool mobs would be as beneficial for a weapon like this. And you could make an argument saying that it's kind of a weak point in this weapon, but melee ED2 in general is kind of just not that common. It can work. You can absolutely farm ED2 with melee. I've done it before, but ED1 1 and 3 are kind of like the classic examples of using melee camp in order to clear out the dungeons. And at ED3, just like at ED1, it absolutely cleared house. I had no problems using the passive and the special attack, combining it with a dragon halberd or a dragon two-hander, and something you can actually do on Ambassador. You can also do it on Tumeken. I'm sure on screen by now I've had footage in the background. So Tumeken specifically, I think I just used the special attack and like a dragon halberd, and it essentially just killed everything. I was paying attention to my HP bar because at Tumeken, when everything's up, I'm used to getting absolutely slapped around and having to focus on my HP. And then when I looked up, everything was dead and Tumeken was on like, I think 110k or so. And it was actually kind of wild to see. Now, again, the problem with ED3 is that it is no longer the GP giant that it once was. I think average GP per hour here is down to like the 30 mil mark if you're running over 5 runs an hour, which 5.5 runs an hour seems like a very outdated metric, but no one's really bothered to actually go and figure out something quite a bit faster. So it is what it is at this point. And something interesting I found at Ambassador is once you go past, I think it's 550k, or maybe it's a different HP value. I'm kind of blanking on this, but the 2 minions that spawn are actually in range to where if you use the special attack and you get the passive going from that special attack, the lesser purifying light one, those hits will just go and target those 2 minions and you're actually able to crit farm pretty reliably. So in theory, you could use this halberd weapon in order to do most of your Zerk rotation while those are out, and you'd be able to make it more consistent because you have more opportunities for hits to give you crit adren from say Meteor or Tsunami. And it was actually rather easy to set up. I would just happen to be in melee distance because I'm using melee, and the minions happen to spawn within a favorable range. I think I teleported out once or twice and it seemed to work every time. So if you have to go farm the Elite Dungeon 3 logs still and you happen to have one of these sitting around, I would definitely bring it. It's hard for me to recommend buying this weapon for ED3. In fact, I'd flat out say don't buy this and go farm ED3 with it. It will take you a long time to make up the money that you spent there. But for someone who wants to melee camp the world and still has Elite Dungeon 1 and 3 to log farm, this is absolutely a solid weapon to do it. I didn't really have any performance issues with it at all. Now, the first place I ended up testing this that wasn't a solo encounter was a Masket herself, and I was experimenting with some dog wrangling on phase 5, and on paper it should work just fine, and it did work out just fine. The issues I was having are more so to deal with the issue of dogs themselves, where the life stealers, if you attack them at all, you ever see an immune hit come up, they just will not aggro to you at all. And they're immune all the way up the stair set. They're immune on that first tile when they get up before they decide which direction to go. And I did find this rather annoying, but the damage was no joke. I was zerking, pressing the special attack and seeing like 25Ks pop out, and Dragon Two-Hander was also hitting like 20k on every single one of them. So if I could get them all grouped up and cooperating, Tumeken's Light absolutely shredded all of the dogs, no questions asked. But getting them all to play correctly right now is a bit of an issue. It's kind of a skill issue on my part for being a bit overzealous or not positioning quite right, and Dragon Two-Hander is probably going further than I'm expecting and hitting them with immunity while I'm attacking ones that are closer. The other spot I did test this in the Amasket fight was the clones that spawn on the end of phase 6 just before you work through the black bar and the rest of her HP and get teleported to P7, and it worked just fine there. It was mostly skill issue from me not pressing the right inputs, but if zerked and pressing the spec and then hitting like a Dragon Two-Hander, it'll absolutely clean through those no problem. I don't think it'll replace the necromancy strat where you have like 2 or 3 people just threads, volley, sap, volley, or if it's like a mage using a necro swap, you know, thread, sap, volley, AoE and bloat or something like that. I don't think Tumeken's Light is going to replace that, mostly because you will want Zerk for P7 to easy K, but the AoE did function well in this situation, and it was definitely fun to play with. Now, there is one thing left that I have to test, and I can't get there right now, but I want to show you an interesting interaction, and I kind of saved this till later in the video because I wanted to talk about some of the more general purpose stuff that this thing would be used for, but this is an interesting thing I figured out while testing with a few of my friends. But I'll just play this clip here right now and let you try and figure out exactly what happened. Now, for those familiar with any sort of speed kill involving melee, say like a one tick or something like that, you will know that the Granite Maul is ubiquitous in the trick shot speed killing scene. They're tossed in all the time wherever they can be fit in to get extra damage and save ticks. And an interesting interaction with this special attack and its passive more specifically is that the Granite Maul in an EOF technically is a spammable ability that has no cooldown. And if I go ahead and attack this dummy here and hit a special attack, and then I just hit my EOF, notice it's just a single Gmaul hit, but it puts out 2 further hits. And auto attacks also do this well, but I digress. And so I was thinking to myself, where could I possibly implement this? And the only place I have thought of, now I don't have access to the Enrage I would like to test this at, but at Telos, Easy K does not carry over between phases because it would ultimately break the boss. It's just too powerful of a spec to have carry over. You're just deleting phases and doing a bunch of shenanigans at that point. And so I thought for phase 5, there's a bunch of minions around you that are high HP and essentially are going to act like combat dummies because the little hits aren't going to kill them. And if the special attack for whatever reason does, you have more around you to still pull from. And for the keen-eyed out there, you will notice that the 2 hits came from my character. It did not come from the target unless they're Purifying Light. So as long as you have minions melee distance to you, you're going to get those passive hits. And for those smarter than me who've already put this all together, what I'm essentially saying is Telos P5 could probably get deleted even faster than it already does on a melee kill, because you have things like Natural Instinct, the Green Beam, you can build up a Zerk, you can be under Cade, and then you could just like press the special attack and then maybe do like a Dragon Claw into as many Gmauls as possible and just continuously fund adrenaline. Now, the issue that I have seen coming with this is the passive hits that come out, they take a couple of ticks to actually get out and hit. So maybe this is a use case where on every ability, you're just adding like 1 or 2 Granite Mauls and letting the adrenaline refresh before you do your next ability. And I could see a consistent rotation being built around this idea. Now, the reason I don't have much Telos Enrage, this is just a little bit of personal story here. I did this boss on release, and when I farmed most of my KC here, 999 was the meta. That's what everyone did. And I continued to do 999 farming until about Archaeology release. And then I pretty much stopped Telos because at that point I was tired of how much power creep was coming into the game. And boy, if I could go back and tell old me the current power creep we have, I wouldn't have believed myself at all, but I digress. And I did a couple hours of pushing when the range method came out that used Chin SGB and Darkbow. I thought that was ridiculous at the time, and essentially I quit Telos right around 2020. I haven't really done this boss since. And as a result, this is kind of a time capsule on my account. It's an image from a lot of stuff done well into the past. But as a final send-off for the boss, I've been planning this for like maybe 4 months. I've had the idea on the back burner where I want to do 4K in a single stream. So what I think I'm going to work on is do some practice mode 4Ks, figure out a strat with melee that this weapon works with, and then just do my current enrage all the way to 4K in a single live stream. I think it'd be a really cool achievement as to kind of send off the boss that really made me my first large sums of GP, but I should probably get this on track. This is a Tumeken's light initial thoughts. I did think it was important though, in order to showcase this connection of Granite Maul counts as an ability and you can send a massive number of hits out. There are a lot of smart players in this community and some of them have probably already figured this out, but it is definitely something I wanted to highlight. Let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas for interactions with this spec in terms of PvM, or if you can think of other encounters that I haven't thought of yet. Let me know in the comments below. Now, the final place I went and tested this was Zuck, and it seemed to work just as usual. I wasn't having any problems with damage, but melee at Zuck, you really have to add in a bunch of obsidian pieces, and at that point you're running through and kind of getting rid of a lot of the benefits that allow the AoE spam, like the 20% adrenaline overhead. Every time you use an ultimate, you're getting 15% adrenaline over 10 seconds. And at Zuck, I don't think anything is going to beat out Necro Camp just from how strong Threads and Deathmark is. I could see someone running in with a mage melee hybrid setup, and in a hybrid setup, I do see this being extremely useful because if you need halberd range at all, you're going to bring this, and the special attack adds a lot of utility when you're doing more of an improv style rotation at bosses. And I think for players who can afford this, it is a worthwhile tool to have because where this weapon works, it works extremely well. In game, there aren't too many places where it does work right now, but we don't know what the future will hold. And I think, honestly, I've yapped on long enough about this initial thoughts. As new information and rotations come out with these items, I will be posting further updates on them. I still have yet to get a Devourer's Guard, but it is the next thing on my list. I also have to get a shard for it, but I think I am going to call the video here. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next video. Peace.